Zoomer fucking Kate Bush fans telling you that like their music taste is elite or something, and she's just like, you don't know about Kate Bush because she heard it on the freaking TikToks. Like,
Right.
I was listening to Kate Bush when I was a kid. How are you, man? So whereabouts are you? You in Cali or?
Actually, I just moved to Nashville a little over a year ago. My family and I are originally from San Diego, California. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I spent 99% of my life in California between San Francisco and San Diego, a little bit in LA. And now we moved to Nashville and we love it here.
Oh, right. I've been to Nashville.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I came for like a camp, like
Oh, like a
few
writing
years
camp.
ago. Yeah, a few years ago, but it was really, really nice.
It's beautiful here. We love it. But you're from where? Liverpool? Is that what I read?
I was yeah, so I live in Liverpool, but
Okay.
I was born there. My parents moved down to London when I was about one.
Okay.
And so I grew up in Tottenham in London. So I'm a
How far is
Tottenham.
London from Liverpool? Dude, I'm so bad with the geographical
It's
stuff.
like it used to be like a 3.5 hour train, but now it's only 2 hours, 2 hours and a bit.
They
And
sped up
I'd
the
say it's
train.
about 250 miles. It's like halfway up the
Okay.
country from London.
Right on. So you were only in Liverpool originally for a year, and then you moved down there, and
Yeah,
then you
so I
moved, but now you moved back.
yeah, I moved back for uni, so I studied music up there, and I
Okay.
have like loads of family up there as well, so like it just made sense. Um, and it was yeah, it's always been my second home, Liverpool. I've been going back and forth my entire life to visit family and holidays and things like that. So there's a lot to do around there for young kids. You know what I mean? It's like the seaside town, kind of.
Sure. And the home of the Beatles, right? So obviously music is
Exactly.
huge.
Yeah, you get a lot of that. That's for
For
sure. We get a lot
sure.
of that.
Was that like how did you get into music? Or do you come from a musical household at all, or is it just the fact that you live in,
Yeah,
Liverpool?
so both of my parents were, well, still are musicians, songwriters, but they never quite
Oh,
like, they never signed any deals and they never sort of broke into the mainstream in any sort of way, or they just sort of did their own little thing. And so I've been surrounded by music my entire life. You know, I was just one of those kids who was kind of born into it in a sort of unofficial way.
hmm.
And I don't think there was anything, I wasn't going to do anything other than music for my entire life. You know what I mean? It's just the path has kind of been laid out for me, and I'm hanging on for dear life.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. Interesting. So your parents were songwriters or are songwriters and musicians, but that was not their full-time gig.
No, like I mean, they've tried to make it their full-time gig for
Hmm.
sure. They never
I mean,
had
it's
any other sort
difficult,
of.
obviously.
They didn't have any alternative career really. Both of well, my dad now sort of teaches music kind of to like disabled kids. So he sings with
Oh,
them
that's
and
awesome.
he helps like the communities and like the kids with mental disabilities and things like that. And he's really good with them. Like he works with kids who can't walk or have like severe levels of autism and things like that. And he goes in there and sings songs with them and he gets reactions out of them. And it's really like he's got this very, very exhausting but incredibly rewarding job.
That's so special.
Um,
I've two kids actually with autism. My older son and a younger son, and it's we have them in music lessons, both of them, and it's fascinating because my especially my older one, he doesn't want to practice, and he plays
hmm,
guitar. Like literally, he plays guitar for the hour or 30 minutes that the guitar teacher comes every week, or he can
yeah.
spend like 15 minutes before that. Um, Practicing whatever he was supposed to learn, and he'll just get it like almost immediately. I was like, why don't you pursue this?
It's one of those things, dude. It's like I think kids who are gifted in music, I was kind of the same. Like they think they know it all. And so
Mhm.
they don't need to practice. You know, if they get it
Right.
instantly, it's like, well, this is easy for me. I think that the way to go might be to like genuinely challenge them and bring them something that's really out of their comfort zone, to really push them because I used to be the same. Like I never wanted to practice my piano. I never wanted to do any of that stuff because it was like, oh, I can just figure that out by my ear. Like it's easy
Uh-huh.
peasy. You know?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, because
but
he'll come in and they'll be like, okay, we're gonna learn this part and or a new song, and then he'll just go, okay, and like within 10 minutes he's already got it. And then the teacher's like, oh, okay, well, we'll keep practicing that for next week or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and same with my younger son. He's only 6 and he can play drums, and he'll teach him a beat and he'll remember, like, next time he practices more though. He likes it. So when like the drum teacher comes back, he can just play it, and it's pretty wild. But that's so cool that your dad does that, because I feel like, at least with my 2 boys, it's something that like it like resonates in them. They can remember it, and it's such a cool thing.
It's one of the few mediums, like music sort of crosses that boundary between, let's say, neurotypical and neurodivergent people, you know, like
Hmm.
it can even bring life back into the eyes of Alzheimer's patients and things like that. Like it's such a it's an amazing tool just to connect to people who have lost, you know, who don't have that connection with, like, you know, the normality of being like a human being. And it's really, really great. And I've only seen him do it like a couple of times, but from what he tells me, he's definitely one of the few people in the country, I would say, who like who's really, he's fearless with them.
Uh-huh.
That's the only way I can put it. Like a lot of the TAs and like the assistant helpers that they have, that they have to have them there legally in the classrooms whilst he's
Uh-huh.
there. They have like quite, because he deals with quite, like, it's from like 10 years old to like 18. So some of these kids are like stronger than they know they are,
Strong, right? Yeah,
and
no,
they,
for
you know,
sure.
they don't know what they're doing with their bodies,
Yeah,
and they can be
right.
quite rough. And but he's really like he's so good at just like working with them, and he cuts through. Like his methods are quite unorthodox, apparently, but that's why he gets hired to do what he does. Like he's like a specialist in this field, and like I think he could be doing like a lot more with it, and like he could potentially do a lot more research into it. But I think he, at the end of the day, he just wants to like sing a few songs with them and go home and have his tea. It's really,
Sure. Wow, that's such a cool thing. Yeah,
yeah.
it's interesting how powerful music is, especially like now when you're talking, I just remembered like my father-in-law had a stroke a couple of years ago.
Mm,
He's doing much better now with therapy and everything, but like when he had the stroke and he kind of like woke up, he didn't know my wife's name, he didn't know like anyone's name, couldn't remember his own name, couldn't really remember anything, but
wow.
he knew he would just started singing Beatles songs. Like he loves the Beatles, his favorite band of all time, and he knows all these facts about them and everything, but he was singing like a bunch of Beatles songs. Like he was just laying there. He knew, I think he was like conscious of like, but he just couldn't, his brain couldn't
Mm.
say what he like the people's names or whatever, and he was just he knew all the lyrics, the melody, he remembered all of that. I was just like shocked. Like of all things, like that's the one thing that stayed with him.
It's because music is a much more, music came before language in
Oh,
our,
interesting.
in terms of like human evolution, if you believe in that. Like, you know, if you think about it, like the calling of another human to another doesn't have to have a language, or the song doesn't have to have a language. It's simply an in tune thing that people resonate with, and it has different interpretations across the globe. But you know, before we could say hello, my name is, in whatever language you pick, like we were able
Hmm.
to sing to our children, we were able to call out to other tribes, we were able to do all this kind of stuff, we were able to hit drums and do all this stuff before language was even developed. So I feel like music is ingrained within our DNA in a much deeper way than most people care to acknowledge, or even, you know, than they know. And we've, you know, in our modern Western society and societies across the world now, we've developed an incredibly complex way of breaking down and manipulating music to be like this thing that we know today. But yeah, it's definitely a primal thing. It's not, that's
That's a
why.
great point. Yeah, that's so interesting because
I'm not a professor, but like
no,
I'd
but it
like
sounds
to
like
go
something would
more
be a
into it.
great study. Yeah, right. I mean, the fact that he could do that and know like the lyrics and the melodies and just like that stuck with him no matter
Mm,
what, and he was able to just sing these songs. It was just so bizarre, and he doesn't remember it. I mean, my wife
mhm.
recorded him doing it because she's like, she didn't know what was going to happen with him, so she's like, well, at least I'll have these, recordings of him singing. It's just
That's
crazy,
that's a
but
magical moment though. It's like really,
yeah, it's amazing.
you get lots
Um,
of stories of that though. You hear people, like if you play somebody like an old person with Alzheimer's, for example, like an old song from their past that you know they loved, someone who has been, you know, unresponsive for years because they're so, you know, they're so damaged by this illness. They can all of a sudden interact with the world and they light up and they understand the surroundings, and they're like, they're back in the room where they first heard that song, and they're back in the, you know, the club back in the day. And it's just
Right,
such
right.
an amazing thing.
I mean, it happens to people all the time. I mean, even in my own daily life, you'll hear a song and it'll be like this nostalgia, like, oh, like you could remember like where you were when that song played for the first time or whatever. Like you hold like songs with certain time periods of your
Yep.
life.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so cool. But yeah, anyway, back to you. I'm sorry. A
That's cool.
rant
Like,
there. Like I love that. But
I
so
like a good tangent.
yeah. So you obviously got into music because you're come from a musical household. What was the first instrument you learned?
The first instrument that I touched and sort of gravitated towards was actually the drums. I remember quite vividly my dad taking me to a studio somewhere in like Stoke Newington in London, and just like whilst he was engineering for some band, I just sort of went over to the drum kit and started playing some stuff. And then I sort of used to go to that studio on and off when I was very young. I'm talking about 4 or 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And then we didn't have a drum kit in the house, so that kind of died down for a bit. But I was always playing, like strumming my dad's guitar when it was on the stand and stuff, but not really being allowed to like touch it because I didn't know how to use it properly.
Mm-hmm.
And finally my mum convinced me to get piano lessons. So I started learning classical piano when I was about 8 or 9, and that was the first like lessons that I had, and like starting to understand, you know, what crotchets were, or quarter notes as you call them, and
Mm-hmm.
like understanding music theory for the first time. And around the same time, like 9, 10, my dad got a drum kit in the house, and then I started playing the guitar because my hands are big enough, and I started getting my head around music as a whole. So it was sort of those three, starting with piano. It was like piano and drums at the same time, and then guitar around the age of 11. And I'm just, yeah, it went from there really.
Wow. And were you writing songs, or did you join the school band or anything like that?
Yeah, so I went to this school called Highgate Wood, and at the time it had a really good performing arts department. It was known as a performing arts school. It's not
Mm-hmm.
anymore. They got rid of the that name for some reason. Um, but yeah, so I managed to get in because simply based on my musical knowledge, because I was outside of the catchment area. Like Highgate Wood's in quite like a nice area of London, and I grew up in like quite a rough and ready part in Tottenham. And I wasn't initially supposed to be getting in, but because my grades were good enough and because my musical ability was good enough, they were like, oh, he can play and he can sing and you can dance a little bit and all. So they were like, oh, we have a department for you. We have like special. It's kind of like affirmative action. Think of it like that. And
Sure.
they granted it to me because I was, you know, I was talented in those departments.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I joined bands. I went to this specific Saturday school at Gladesmore school, which is in Tottenham. They had this it was like a government funded it's like a borough funded arts thing called the Haringey Young Musicians. And I was in like a band there, and I played guitar, and that was my first experience playing with the band, you know, learning how to play off each other, not really knowing what I was doing, thinking I was better than everyone else, smashing the drums, turning the distortion all the way up on the amp, trying to play, you know, Purple Haze and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, that was good fun, man. That's where it all
That's
happened.
wow. And you were writing songs at this point or no?
I started writing at the age of 14. I wrote my
Okay.
first song at the age of 14. I can't really remember how it goes. I can kind of remember the chords and the melody ish, but it wasn't very good. I was into like, I've always been into like very complex forms of music. So I've been into like metal, death metal, prog rock, classical and jazz and all that kind of stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
my stuff at that time, all I was listening to was Muse and
Oh,
Jeff Buckley and metal. So it was going to be like really sad and quite like complicated chord structures and Radiohead-esque. And I couldn't sing at all. Like I wasn't born, like some people are born with voices, right?
yeah. Or they're born with like a cool sounding voice, right?
Yeah, or like their muscles there. You know, some guys have big shoulders, some girls have like wider hips. You know, I think the vocal cords are, it's a bit of a genetic lottery when it comes to that kind of thing, right?
Mhm.
And I wasn't born with the muscular cords, that's for sure. So I was just listening back to my old demos, man, I cringe so hard because it's just like at 14 years old, especially that time when like your voice is breaking as a male. Like
Sure.
I used to have like a high voice, and then my falsetto was okay, and then I had to relearn to sing again, and I was really bad anyway. So I was like below par, and then pushed even more below par once I hit puberty, and
Right.
it was fun. But yeah, I was writing songs from 14. Like I started producing at the same age actually, because
Oh, really?
my dad was doing a lot of production work for like local bands and stuff. He worked with a local band called The Wireless, and loads of other people like around like North London, East London. And one day I just said, "Can I use your computer to make some music?" And he was like,
Mhm.
"Yeah, sure." And so he literally showed me how to use Logic in the most basic way. Here's how the MIDI works. Here's how to record audio. There you go. And then he walked out the room, and I was just like, "Cool. Now I could do some cool shit." And sorry, I didn't. Am I allowed to swear?
No, yeah, you can swear.
Right. Yeah. Now I can make some music, and it took me a couple of goes to really get into the flow, and all of a sudden I could just program. I could just do it because you know when young kids get a grip of things,
Yeah,
our brains are like sponges at that age, you know.
right.
And
It just resonates with them.
I took to it like water, and I was in my dad's back room most weeks, just like making really weird tunes that like of like strange chords and weird melodies and strange Logic stock sounds that don't make sense. And it was like, you know, stuff from like computer games because I used to play, well, I still play a lot of computer games, but that's where a lot of my influences came from, as well as, you know, listening to my mum's and my dad's back catalogue of their music and what they used to listen to, a lot of
Mhm.
80s stuff. But yeah, so producing and writing started young, relatively speaking, about 14. And I was just making loads of electronic music, which is some of it's actually kind of good. Like I've got a lot of the old stuff backed up.
Uh-huh.
I transferred it to my laptop like not too long ago, and I was listening to it, and I was like, I actually saved some patches. You know,
Yeah.
there's one patch in Logic which I found, which is a beautiful, like it's like a poly synth pad, but it's really warm.
Mhm.
And I just saved that shit. I was like, yeah, man, I had ears back then. You know, I knew what sounded
Yeah.
okay.
You
So
might need to pull that thing out sometime. You
yeah,
know what I
yeah.
mean? Like you're like,
I,
oh, this might work.
I use it in everything. I use it in everything.
Oh, really? Okay.
If I'm layering up pads in the song, I will use a combination of that pad. I labeled it pads from heaven because it sounds so good. Pads from heaven, and I'll use a mellotron, and then I'll use an organ, and I'll mix them all together to have just like a backbone of harmony if I'm making something now. So you never know what you might find when you dig. You know, if you go back in time and dig some stuff up.
Sure, that's interesting. And with that, were you showing people your songs, or is
Yeah,
it
me.
kind of for your own thing?
I had a close knit. The fact the friends that I hung out with them are still the friends I had back in school. I'm friends with them still. I used to make music with a friend called Rufus. He's an animator now, but we had this project called Every Red Power Ranger. You can find it on SoundCloud as well. It's still there.
That's such a rad name.
Yeah, we thought it was funny because we heard some internet rumor that all the actors who ended up playing every like the Red Power Rangers, they all ended up doing like gay porn. And at that age,
Oh,
we just thought that was really funny. So we
of
just called the
course.
project Every Red Power Ranger, right?
That's so funny. I didn't know that. Oh
Just being
man.
15-year-olds stoned out of our minds and going, oh yeah, this is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we made some really ridiculous music that doesn't make any sense and it's hard to listen to. And it's just sketchbook stuff, I'd say. But that was really fun. And then me and him were also in a band called Acrylics, which I sort of wrote and arranged everything for. That was like Foo Fighters, but really progressive. Like so weird time signatures, 5 6 minute songs. The harmony was completely whack and really weird and jazzy, with like horrendously recorded vocals and just like a 16-year-old just trying to make like punk rock with like too many chords. Essentially, that's what it was.
That's a good
Uh,
name too, though.
Acrylics.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, when you're that young and you're that obsessed with like music and you know that's what you want to do, we passed the name around the whole band. You know what I mean? We did a couple of shows, but it wasn't like a thing. It was too hard to run. I couldn't sing. But yeah, I did like that name, and you never know. I might bring some of the old ideas back.
Right. It's funny how, because the name is so important. And I've talked to other people that like when it comes to the band, like you spend a lot of time on the like the flyers and the logo. It's like you don't even have a name or you don't even have music yet, but it's like we gotta have the coolest name, we gotta have the coolest logos, we gotta have the coolest artwork, and like
Mm.
then it just becomes, oh yeah. And we also have to write some songs.
Yeah,
But
we
it
gotta
sounds
do
like you
something.
had the songs and then like acrylics is just a solid name. Same with
Yeah,
Every Red Power Ranger. That's a good one too.
it sticks. Yeah,
That's
it definitely had
funny.
a thing to it. Yeah, yeah,
So then you ended up going to school for music? Is that's what you said? You moved back up to
yeah,
Liverpool to go to
yeah.
school?
So I studied at this uni called LIPA, and it's like it's well known in the UK in like music circles. It's kind of like a pop music and a sort of like a pop rock and kind of jazz specialist school. It's a
Oh,
performing
it's
arts
cool.
college essentially, and it was set up by Paul McCartney himself.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I've heard of the school.
Yeah, yeah.
The husband and wife in St. Lucia went there.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they went there. That's the only reason, that's how
Okay.
I found out about it. They were telling me about it. And they said Paul McCartney shows up to the okay, I've got questions just based off their what they were saying. He goes to the graduation ceremony. Did you have
Yeah,
this experience?
I met him personally.
He does a songwriting thing, right? Did you get to do a
Yeah,
songwriting thing with him?
I actually got double the sessions with him because I wrote that many songs.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah, I definitely want to hear this because I told them, I'm like, I will go back to college just to meet him. And I said, or I'm going to figure out when you guys graduate and just like, somehow sneak into the next graduation just so I
Do
can
it.
like meet him.
Do it. The security is not that hard. You'll manage.
That's
Yeah.
so
So
crazy. Okay.
what
So you went there.
the way they do it is essentially like the third year songwriters get to meet him. Like it's not a competition. You just if you do third year songwriting and you turn up and you write good songs, you get to do a little. He gives you like half an hour max with him in a room, and he just gives you some feedback on the songs. It's literally like I don't know. Are you a writer yourself? Do you make music?
Oh, I'm just a massive fan. And I found my way into the industry was through radio and conversation. So I did terrestrial radio for like 17 years.
Oh
I
right.
tried to write songs when I was younger in high school and a little bit out of that, but it was never a thing that I ever saw as like something I could do. I wasn't good enough. I knew enough people around me that were doing it, not even to like a super high level, but I was like, yeah, I should probably just figure out another way into this industry.
The thing with Paul was just like a normal writing session. Like you'd bring him like I remember I played him a couple of songs. I did one song with this girl called Holly Ellison with a song called Dutch Courage, which was about being too drunk all the time. And he it was like a normal writing session. He just said, "Oh yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that lyric. Maybe you should finish it like this. Maybe you should add some ooze here." And it was just really surreal because I've been listening to this dude's music since I was in the womb. And
Right. I mean, he's
that was
the
cool.
biggest songwriter of all time.
Yeah,
I mean,
out of England at least.
he's wrote more hits than anyone,
Yeah,
realistically. I mean, it's insane.
yeah, he's a
Um,
legend, absolute legend.
okay, when you go to meet him, like, you must have been nervous. Like, are you nervous
I
going in and being like, okay, I'm going to sit with Paul, at least I would be. I'm going to sit with Paul McCartney
I don't really like get
and show him
starstruck.
my music. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not really like a starstruck type guy. I mean, it was nervous because it was like, oh, it's him, but he's just a human being, you know. Like
Mhm.
at the time, my friends were freaking out. That
Yeah.
was the funniest thing for me. But I think because I've got such a massive ego myself, like I just feel like I belong there anyway. I've got a massive head, and I'm like, yeah, this is what I should be doing. I should be hanging out with Paul freaking McCartney. Like,
Right,
like,
right. Oh my God.
but it,
I would have brought the 37 Beatles vinyls I have. I'd have been like, here, I'm gonna spend the next 30 minutes just chatting with you and having you sign
yeah,
records.
I'm sure he's had that experience. You know what I mean? So I made sure I wasn't too like overbearing. I didn't ask him too many questions. I was just polite and nice and saying,
Sure.
nice to
You
meet
played it
you.
cool. You sounds like you played it cool. For me, I've met a lot of my heroes aside from him. And most of the time I'm like I got to play it cool. But if it was if it was him, I wouldn't been there's no way I would have been able to play it
A
cool. I would have just
beetle,
been
an actual
eh,
living, breathing
I
beetle.
mean, my sister's name is Abby from Abbey Road record. Like I grew up, that was it. Like the Beatles were like the thing. And like I said, I have so much like useless Beatles memorabilia. It's sickening. So like if I got to meet him, I'd be like, yeah, we're gonna spend 30 minutes just talking about how much
They're just like
I'm obsessed with
one
you.
of the best freaking bands of all time, man. I will salute that. Like I'll listen to Revolver, Sergeant Pepper's still. What's your
Uh,
favorite album from
Revolver.
this
That's funny
specific?
that you brought that one up because I think it has the least amount of like radio success. I mean, success hits on it.
Commercial success, yeah.
Yeah, commercial success. But that's my favorite record from them. She says is my favorite Beatles song from that album.
Oh, it's a tune that.
And I like something is probably my favorite Beatles song, even though
Mm,
it's like a pretty massive, you know, hit on that end. But I really liked all George Harrison songs, to be honest.
yeah.
But he's not alive, so I would nerd out hard on Paul McCartney.
And he gets all the love that John and George can't get right now.
Right, right.
You know what I mean? Like he gets the extra icing on the cake.
Sure. Okay, that's so crazy. So you met him.
Hmm.
You got to work with him. I mean, for at least you said you got 2 sessions with him.
Yeah, because I wrote that many songs and I collaborated with that many people that there was a girl who I worked with called Hannah. So we performed a song for him. Oh yeah, we didn't just show them the song, like we sung it to him.
That's so crazy.
I was sitting there with a guitar while Holly was doing the main vocal and I was doing some harmonies. And because I've got quite a high range, I'm like singing on top of the girls. And he made a remark. He's like, "Oh, usually the guys sing underneath the girls." I was like, "Yeah, well, gotta practice your falsetto, man. Like, you'll get there one day, Paul."
You're like, I'll teach you how to do it after the show.
Yeah,
After the
yeah. And then the second one was just with Hannah. So it was actually quite a funny moment. Like, you get this right. I knew Hannah was coming in after me because they did both of my sessions one after the other. And I was just standing in the room. Like Holly left and I was waiting for Hannah to come in. And then Paul was like, "The door's there, mate." And I was like, and I was like, "No, I've got another session with you." It's like, "Oh, okay, so you know." Like,
Oh,
trying to
that's
keep
so
cool.
funny.
But I bet he thought I was one of those weird like super fans that just wanted to like, I don't know,
Stare
maybe
at him.
I had something in my coat that I shouldn't have. I don't know.
That's so
We didn't
funny.
even get like a security check or anything, by the way. I remember now, like they didn't check us or search our bags or anything. They were just like going with Sir Paul.
That's so wild, man.
Maybe he
Like
was wearing a bulletproof vest or something. Or I don't know.
probably. Right.
He's that big. Like he
I
is
mean,
that
he's
big.
legit, like one of the big. I mean, the most famous people there are, like on the planet. Like it, yeah. That's so cool that you had that experience. And then he shows up to the graduation, which I'm like, okay, I gotta sneak into this. How many kids are graduating in the school?
There's like 250 to 300 kids in the class in a year, so it's roughly about 50 kids per course.
Okay.
So there's music, drama, music theater, entertainment management,
Hmm.
music like sound technology, and there's like theater like production design course. I do a whole course on like being backstage and building sets and things like that.
Oh, that's rad. And
Really,
he's
oh, and
there at
dance.
all of them, and he
Yeah,
just shakes your hand when you go across the stage.
yeah, that's his thing. That's his role.
Oh man, I'm going. I'm
And
sneaking in.
and a picture. Do it. Do it.
I'm sneaking in. Okay, well, wow, that's incredible. So you went to that school, and then from there, you obviously picked up a bunch of knowledge. And then do you? I wonder how many songs that come out of that like become like a hit.
I love Lipper.
Yeah, like out of those sessions with Paul McCartney.
I don't think any of them have.
Really? There's not
No.
like one that comes out and they go, "Oh, this is
Some
part of the."
some people have released them as like, oh, this is the one that I did with Paul McCartney, but like it takes more than that to like get a hit song
Right.
in age, even when I graduated. But like the industry has changed so much. That's like, yeah, I don't think any of the
Sure.
songs have like done that well. In
Done
fact,
anything?
most of the songs that people wrote at Lipper have stayed in Lipper. Like the only songs that I released that I wrote there were the ones with my band, and I don't play with that band anymore, and I don't really listen to
Okay.
that stuff anymore. You
Sure.
kind of grow and you sort of get on with things. At least I do anyway. I don't like looking back too far.
Right, right, right. So once you finished, you had a band there when you're going to school there,
I
and
had a band called Native Kings. Yeah, I still play with them now. They're still my rhythm section in St. Louis. But like, um, yeah, that just fell apart because I didn't want to just do rock music for the rest of my life. I wanted
Okay.
to branch out.
So when you graduate, I mean, I know you've worked with big name artists as well, like as songwriter and producer. Like, so did you graduate and then like, so tell me, what did you graduate with a degree in, and then how did your career progress from there?
So I graduated with a degree in music, and I basically got snapped up by management, who I'm still with now.
Oh wow.
So I went in for a little interview, little meeting with my manager, and he was like, "Well, what do you want from us?" And I said, "Well, I want a publishing deal, and I want to get into songwriting, and I want to live off my songs."
Mm-hmm.
And so he was like, "Yeah, we can do that, but it's going to take about 9 months, and you're going to need to put together a show reel. We have a studio here that you can use, which I'm still in now
Oh
because
wow.
I lived there actually." And he was like, "Yeah, you can use the studio as much as you want. To make sure you get that show reel ready. We'll set you up with as many sessions as we can, but because you don't have any sort of profile and you're just fresh out of uni, it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of grind. So be prepared for that." And he also said, "Oh yeah, and I suggest you don't get a job because otherwise you're going to be too tired and too busy to actually work on music." So I was like, "Huh, no money to pay rent, need to find a show reel, don't really have anywhere to sleep, just graduated. What am I going to do?"
Right.
So I basically couch surfed for about 5, 6 months. So say I graduated in June of 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And then I first of all stayed like 2 months on the couch with my drummer. He was away for the first month, and he let me stay for another month free of rent because I wasn't making any money.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I was just trying to come up with stuff and do sessions and work with as many people as I could. And then I got shifted out of there to my friend's basement, Sivert, who's a Norwegian. There's a huge Norwegian community at Lipper, by the way, and
Huh.
I managed to befriend quite a lot of them. I love the Norwegians; they're really really nice people actually. Um, and I sort of I dossed around in their basement for about 5 months. I would They just had this spare living space with a couch, and I would just use it, and then I'd use the shower when I could, and then I like every day, or most days, I would just mosey on down to my studio and try and work or like do the little sessions that I could. I was getting bits and pieces of paid work here and there, but I wasn't bringing any money in, so I was living on like Marmite on toast, Rivita and peanut butter and porridge and like lentils, and just like completely just on my ass really for about 6 months. And then I I got this one job with this girl band, and I got just under $1,000 for it for like a couple of singles,
Mm-hmm.
and that was just enough for me to put like a deposit down for a room just outside the city in Croxteth, or in Toxteth. And this was in Liverpool, by the way. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I was officially, I'd say, homeless between May 2016 until December 2016. And I was just on my feet. My parents don't have any money, so I couldn't ask them for anything. They'd be able to give me like, 20, £50 like here and there. But I was just sort of living on nothing day to day and trying to figure out what the hell I was going to do. Um, and then I started living in this really cheap room uh, from December 2016 for about 18 months. And
Wow.
then and then I managed to like by then I'd pretty much gotten my show reel together a few months after that. And I managed to get a publishing deal. I managed to sign a publishing deal
That's
about
huge.
about 18 months after I graduated. So there was a lot of couch surfing. There was a lot of umming and ahhing, but I never got down about it. I was never like, oh, I'm not gonna do music. It was just like, well, I have to get up and I have to do my thing now. I never gave up. That's the
Uh-huh.
one thing. Like I never. This is all I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. There's no day job. I can't do.
Right.
I'll starve before I have a day job. I don't think about the world like that.
I love that. So you get the publishing deal, and then what would you say, like, aside, I mean, that's a huge milestone moment, I'm
It
sure,
is,
for
yeah.
you in your life, obviously. And what would
It
you say
was,
then?
yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about that. Like, you've worked so hard. It's been 18 months. you've been eating porridge and, lentils and scraping by and living on people's couches, and then you get this publishing deal. And tell me about that moment.
So I remember I met Charlie from Talyard. I'm actually in one of the writing rooms now because I'm still published by them. So I'm in London now, and yeah, I remember he came up to Liverpool to see my show reel. I think I had about 5 or 6 songs, played him a couple of the songs from the girl band that I said I was working with that managed to get me that place. And he was really impressed, and he said, "Why don't you come down for a writing camp and we'll see how it goes?" So I, booked a train, and a month later, I was writing songs with some of their writers here, who I still have a good relationship with now.
Mhm.
And it was great. Like, it was the first time I was put into a, like an industry standard professional writing camp scenario where like you essentially, I do what I do now, but like it was the first time I did it where like I work with the artist and I come up with like virtually a finished record on the day, because that's the standard. That's what we do. Do you know what I mean? Like we come
Right,
in,
right.
we write the song, we produce the beat or like the backing to it, and we try get it as finished as we can in one day,
One
generally
day.
speaking. So that was a learning curve, and I had to learn quick. But yeah, so I did the writing camp. They loved the tunes that I did. They could see the promise in me, and then a couple months later, I put pen to paper, and that was it. And then
Wow.
finally, I was able to like live off, my songs, and they give me an advance, and that's how that's how I'm not dead yet.
What was the first cut you had, or like, was there a moment like you got to kind of, or somebody bought your song, or like an artist put a song on hold?
I can't actually remember what my first cut was. I think it might have been some K. No, it wasn't a K-pop thing. I got this song. My first notable cut was this song that I wrote with a girl called Sorana, who's now in LA. She wrote. Have you heard "Heartbreak Anthem" by Little Mix?
Yes.
Yeah, she wrote that.
Oh, wow.
That was done in house here, actually.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. It's like there was a couple of producers I know who worked on it. It's like between LA and here, essentially.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, me and Sorana are good friends, and she she came up to Liverpool one time, and we were just writing, and we wrote this song called "Hold Your Kite" for this artist called Goldfish. And initially, it was just like for her, like she just wanted to write a song, and we came up with this ballad. And I remember her saying it initially. It's like, "Oh, this sounds too poppy. It's too boy bandy. I don't really like the melodies." And it's like, okay. And then like a couple months later, after I sent over the demo, which was just piano and vocals,
Mhm.
we got this bite from these DJs called Goldfish, and they're from South Africa. They've had like quite a big, like they had a hit, like a huge one a few years ago. I can't remember what it was called, but they were releasing a new album, and it turned out to be like that. Like our song was like the biggest track on that album.
That's
I
huge.
mean, it only did like maybe like 10 million streams or something like that, but for me, it was
Only
like
10 million? Like, that's crazy.
yeah, that's like good, you know what I mean? So I'm really happy with that one. So I think that was my first like notable one. And writers like myself, we always get ones that sort of, you never really know. People release music all the time, like, and some of it goes under the radar, and some of it
Mhm.
might blow up in 10 years' time. You never know. You know
Mhm.
how TikTok works. It's like all the songs
Yeah.
that had never been heard of before have just been like coming
Like
up.
Kate Bush, "Running Up That Hill" is like one of the biggest songs on there right now, because of like Stranger Things or something. I was like, wait, what? Like, that's
Yeah,
so
that's
bizarre.
I'm a massive Kate Bush fan, and I think that's really funny because there was a meme going around about like there's a picture of this kind of alternative looking girl being like Kate, like Zoomer fucking Kate Bush fans telling you that like their music taste is elite or something, and she's just like, you don't know about Kate Bush because you heard it on the freaking TikToks. Like
Right.
I was listening to Kate Bush when I was a kid from like the actual CDs. Do you know what CD is?
Yeah, right. No, that's so funny. I just thought that was so random because, do you know the artist Meg Myers?
No, I'm
Uh,
really bad with new music,
uh,
and you're
she was kind of new it. I mean, she's a newer artist. Like 2008, maybe it's 2018, 2019. She covered that song, and
all
it
right.
became a hit on alternative radio. And I was like, and I was working in alternative radio at the time, and I was like, that's a random song to, I mean, like, not that Kate Bush is random, but it was just like, of all people, like, to do that song and then have it become a hit. And
I
then I saw, like, recently, I'm like, how did this other Kate, like, how did the original become a hit on TikTok?
I whoever owns the licenses to that song, or whoever publishes that song, has been doing a really good job since its conception. Because like that song was huge on a TV show called The OC. Do you remember The OC?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that song was big on that.
Oh, I
It
don't
came
remember that. Yeah, I remember the show. I don't remember hearing the song on the show, but that's
Running Up That
crazy.
Hill was like a big sync on that series. And also, what was that band? I think Placebo did a version of it as well.
Oh,
Placebo did
did they?
a version of Running
I
Up That
love
Hill.
Placebo. That band's awesome.
Yeah, so that tune has just been like coming in and out and in different versions for a long time. It must just have a thing. It's got that hit quality, clearly.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's cool. I'm gonna look up that Placebo version.
Do it.
The only thing I remember from OC is Phantom Planet doing the intro.
What's that?
The band Phantom Planet.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
they
yeah.
wrote that song in the beginning.
California.
Yeah. And Jason Schwartzman was the drummer of the band. The actor, you know who he is?
No.
If you saw his picture, you'd know. He's in like Sideways. He's in, I don't know. I'm trying to think of something else. Like, he's kind of a goofy looking guy. He's got like a mole right here, kind of a bigger nose, dark brown
I'm
hair.
sure I'd recognize him.
If you saw him, he's a notable actor that if you saw him, you'd recognize him. And he was the drummer of that band. And
All right.
obviously his acting career took off, but that's funny. So,
Okay.
okay, so you had that cut. That's amazing. And then, like, from what I was reading about, you've done this stuff with like Ava Max and David Guetta. Like, are those things that also happen later down the line?
Yeah, so I got the A&R team for Getter and Ava Max are basically the same people.
Okay.
They have like there's a very close knit network at Atlantic. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
Atlantic US, which is owned by Warner. And so they have camps here, and they have camps at Talyard because they have a really good relationship with Talyard. And so David Guetta had a camp here like a couple of years ago, or like but before COVID basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I was pulled along to like help write some hits for them. Do you know what I mean? And we had like it was like there was an Ava Max camp and then a David Guetta camp that we did, and we got some really really good songs out of it. Um, they do these camps like all over the world, but it's just so nice. I don't really think about it when it's happening, but like looking back, it's like, oh yeah, they actually like requested me to be on this camp and like
Yeah, that's huge to
take part
write
and
for
write
these
songs for
for
these
two massive artists.
because I literally have the messages from like Derulo's A&R being like, oh yeah, can you make these changes to this song? Like the song never came out, but it's just like it's such a surreal thing to like actually be talking to these guys and having these conversations, and like it's nice. That is part of what I do. Do you know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
in a couple years or maybe tomorrow, like one of these tunes is going to be like a massive hit. So we're always playing like a game of gamble, a game of chess, and it's just got to keep your head down and stay in the game for as long as you can.
Yeah. And you have a song out of you started your own artist project or it came out at St. Louis. This is your thing with debut.
Yeah, St. Louis is me. St. Louis is like my thing. So like
Mm-hmm.
when I quit the band, when I quit Native Kings back in, well, I don't even know, 2017, 2018, I just decided that like I went to go see Bruno Mars in Birmingham, and like it just changed my whole perspective on what I wanted to do and what I wanted to achieve as an artist. And yeah, it just made me realize that I could just be having so much more fun doing a much wider range of music and just going full on into pop mode than just doing this alternative rocky stuff that was destroying my ears and destroying my voice. So I just yeah, I made the decision to quit the band, and I didn't think it was really going anywhere anyway. Um, and I started making demos for St. Louis, and we've been gigging it, and I assume you've seen the video.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I put that together all myself. I wrote debut with a couple of friends here, but I produced it myself. We've got like basically a whole album's worth of material that's kind of waiting to see the light of day. But these things, you know, they take time, and at the moment we're just trying to push debut on socials as much as we can, and you know, promote it and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, St. Louis is like my main baby at the moment.
Interesting. So you said you created the video yourself? Like tell me about that.
So I came up with the concept.
Okay.
I came up with the treatment. Initially, we were going to do it like with loads of CGI, but that would have been way too expensive. I met a director called Andy James Taylor, who's an incredibly talented independent filmmaker, and he just happened to be there at one of my gigs last year, like just out of lockdown, post COVID. Liverpool, like I had a show in Liverpool on the Shankly rooftop. Shankly's like a really famous hotel in Liverpool, and
Hmm.
we just played to a bunch of people, and Andy happened to be there. And so he came up to me after the gig and he was like, "That was amazing. I really love your music, blah, blah, blah. We should do something together." And I was like, "Well, I've got this kind of mental video idea, which is just like completely, you know, out of my budget, but I want to do it." So I just stayed in touch with him, and we went for coffee, and I explained what I wanted to do. And him and I sort of curated the team. Like we put together, we've got a makeup artist, we've got a costume designer, we got the venues, we got the entire crew. He already had a director of photography that he uses all the time called Mike Donaghy, who did a really good job. He was holding the camera and he did a lot of the final edits with us as well. But yeah, it was kind of, it's basically, it was all out of my own independent budget, which I scrounged together through, you know, releasing records and producing for people and just doing my day-to-day songwriting stuff. And I just sunk it all back into this video and sunk it all back into my own thing. And now
It's a cool video. I mean, she's the costume that the girl has with the
that
thing
was
over.
Hannah. It was designed by a girl called Hannah Bridges. She's amazing. Who also went to
Yeah.
Lipper. So we found her because she was doing her masters at Lipper, and Andy reached out because he was just looking for costume designers, and I think he must have just come across her Instagram or something, and she happened to have just dropped her final, like she had plans to make this final piece for her masters, and she fell out with the client or something. And so initially she said no. And then we came back 3 weeks later for some reason, being like, "Are you sure you're going to say no?" And she was like, "Actually, I'm free now. I want to do it. Love the idea." So
Oh wow.
I had concept art made and everything. Like you can go on my Insta, you can see like I had concept art made with like the mask and stuff, and brought the headpiece and how I wanted the set to look and stuff like that.
Yeah, with the candles and like that you're walking up to the
Yeah.
her there and there's like the side things with the candles all over it.
Yeah. It's all like very sort of ritualistic, which is
Uh-huh.
quite funny. Yeah, we had so much fun shooting that video. Hannah did an amazing job in the costume. The actual headpiece was designed by a samba costume designer called Ila Layla. So the headpiece frame is actually like quite a traditional samba headpiece,
Oh,
just
interesting.
with the mesh pulled forward a little bit. Because I wanted to be quite Lovecraftian and quite
Yeah, have her face covered a bit.
yeah, because the girl who's in the video is a good friend of mine, but she's also like an artist in her own right. So if her face was all like she doesn't mind sharing it, and she doesn't mind people knowing it's her, but she's also trying to have her own career. So if it was just her face there, it would have been a bit.
Obvious.
And I wanted their face to be covered anyway because I think it adds to the mystery and the sort of haunting dark nature of the video.
Sure. I completely agree.
Yeah.
It's a cool it's such a cool video. And is the band in the video, is that your backing band?
Yeah, so the guys who there's like band shots and there's story shots. Um, a lot of the people, a couple of people who are in the band shots aren't actually in the band. They were just there to like look cool. But it's
Because
like
there's you have a big band. I mean, there's like 10 people or something on the stage or like
yeah.
in that red room, right?
We usually perform with at least six. So
Oh
it's like
wow.
me, the two girls, like minimum two girls,
This
bass
the
drum.
backing singers or the other
Yeah,
girls think okay, vocalists,
yeah.
okay.
The backing singers, but because it's such a vocal heavy music, and I think like people, I think being more inclusive and not making it so much about me. And because it is about me, like I write everything and I arrange everything and I do that kind of stuff myself. But
Hmm.
when I'm 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 very conscious of presenting it in a way that it is a community project and it is like it's a labor of love driven project. And I understand that like it would never have been possible without those girls. Like they're a very important part of the sound, and I love them to pieces. And they're so beautiful and they have this presence, and I just think there's nothing cooler than like going up on stage and like, or at least seeing someone perform on stage and they've got like shit hot backing singers. And when we haven't performed like a show where like they're wearing the suits, but they will be doing a show with the suits, because I think that just looks really, really cool. I had to buy that like specifically, like
That's cool.
especially for them. But yeah, I sorted all that out. That was all like independently funded from me somehow. I don't know how I managed it.
Well, it's a
Yeah.
cool video, man. It's awesome. And I love what you're doing with the song. And you said you have a whole album's worth of stuff to put out.
Yeah, we've got like the next singles pretty much like planned out. I'm just trying to figure out like which order we want to do it in, because we've got this really big song called Parachute, which is like it's just huge. It's just like I can't wait for people to hear it, and I need to like conceive another music video idea. So I'm trying to come up with a treatment for that, and like I'm gonna start talking to Andy about it in the next couple of months. Gonna finish the song and get it mixed and mastered, and then move on to like hopefully another epic video shoot. Because I do want to like make sure that I keep the consistency there, which is
Yeah.
expensive. But again, like I said before, I'd rather starve than have a day job and do something boring for a living. So
Sure. Sure. I love it, man. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I really, really appreciate it.
oh, anytime, bro. I'll be back again if you want me.
Oh, I would love to have you back again. And if you ever find yourself in Nashville again, I'd love to hang.
Yeah. Well, I'll hit you up on socials and stuff, and we can do all that stuff. If I'm in Nashville, we'll definitely do that. And we do like an in-person.
No, I would love to do an in-person thing. That'd be killer.
Awesome.
Cool, man. Thank you. So I have one more quick question before I let you go, Cameron. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
My advice is there's a lot of advice. Avoid unnecessary chemical-based pleasures. I'm sober. I have been for 2.5 years.
Really? Oh, let's have another have handful conversation here because so am I. Congratulations on that.
Thank you very much. And you too.
Thank you. Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah,
So cool.
I don't drink anymore. I can't do it. I mean, I can, but it's not my drug. I mean,
Right.
I don't do anything now, but like I realized that I'd been drinking to get drunk since the age of like 14, 15 years old.
Mm-hmm. Same
My late,
here.
my late teens were full of like alcohol abuse and smoking a lot of weed and
Mm-hmm.
doing a lot of hallucinogenics and that kind of stuff, which was fun. I mean, I had a good time. Don't get me wrong, but I woke up like at the end of 2019, and I had a not so much a rude awakening. I was just like I'd realized that my mental health had gotten to the point where I'd just run it completely ragged, and I didn't think there was any way back. And a friend just said, "Look, why don't you just try and not drink for a bit? It helped me out." So I started. I had one last blowout on New Year's Eve 2019. And then on the 1st of January 2020, I just was like, okay, today's the day. 2020 is the year Cameron gets sober. And I did it. I just did it.
Wow, man. Congratulations, especially in that timing. What a time to stop drinking, right? When everyone now you're stuck in the house, the world's chaotic, and the fact that you were able to continue on, especially in those first 3, 4, 5, 6 months. I mean, that's the rough time. And dude, I read that.
Yeah.
Great job, man. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it wasn't so much like I I was just losing days, man, like losing days to hangovers. And it's not like I'm not one of those people that has like a super addictive personality. Like I could go days without a drink. I could go weeks without a drink. It wouldn't bother me. Saying no to a night out would be like, okay, whatever. But it was after I had that one beer, just after I had that one drink, that one G&T, that one vodka, that one thing, and if a switch flicked in my head, and all of a sudden I was like, it's party time.
Right.
I have to just get on it. I have
Yeah.
to get
Right.
in. I have to get let's get some coke in. Let's get some freaking
Mm-hmm.
whatever I can get my hands on, and then just party until 11 a.m. the next day. And then I'd wake up with no money in my bank account, a splitting headache, and despair through the floor. Like I would just be a complete mess, and I just wouldn't want to work, and I wouldn't want to be around people, and it made me aggressive and made me antisocial, and I nearly lost friends. I nearly like hurt friends, like physically hurt people when I was drinking, like just because I was an idiot and I didn't know myself. I had to make a lot of humble and sort of embarrassing apologies to people that I offended on nights out, and being like, look, I know that's not me, but like that's not me, and I can't believe I did that. And it happened on several occasions, and I'm just so glad I said goodbye to that, because I don't need it. I
Right.
don't.
That's
I,
amazing, dude. Yeah. The amends. Oh, the
yeah,
amends.
you've got to. You've got to. I mean, I didn't do a 12-step program or anything like that. I just went cold turkey and it was fine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it wasn't hard. Like I can be around people who are drinking. I can be around people who are doing drugs. There's a lot of drugs in the industry. There's a lot of people who like to party. And that's fine. You do you in moderation. Go for it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just I don't need it. I'm the guy who's just having tap water on a night out, and it's not because I'm skint anymore. It's just because I'd rather I like having something in my hand.
Right. Right. That's I always
I don't
just.
even like fizzy drinks. Do you know what I mean? So it's just
Oh,
like,
okay. See, I do. I can do the soda water. And if it's gonna get if it's a wild night, I might just do Diet Coke. Who knows where the night will take me? But like, yeah, I remember when I first stopped drinking, it was like I was self conscious of other people and like asking me questions because I was never the guy not drinking. So I would always get like a soda water with cranberry, like so it looks like it because it comes in a little tumbler. It looks like a little mixed drink, like so
yeah,
nobody
yeah.
would ever question it, but or say something weird to me. So it's like it's just so bizarre the games that you play in your head. Like
Did
anyone
you
really
feel
gives a shit about it.
you felt self-conscious because you weren't drinking? Is
in
that it?
the beginning for me, yeah, but it took me about 4 attempts to stop doing all that shit. So
Yeah, but it's
um
good. We grew out of it. I mean, how long have you been sober?
from drugs, not long. Coming up on 6 months, but alcohol 5 years.
Well done, man. Well done.
Thank you. I had a bunch of surgeries, neck surgeries, and that kind of spiraled out into a bunch of other bullshit, and you know how that
Oxy.
works. Yeah, and all that, and then pot was a legal thing, and so that was becoming where everyone's like, "You can't get addicted to that," and well, I was. I mean, the amount I was doing, like 24/7, had to be, you know, out of my brain. So it just became a
I
thing. You know what I mean?
mean, weed's one of those things, man. You build up such a tolerance to it that you can just smoke it all day. You
Right.
can
And
just
that's where I was
end it all
at.
day. Yeah.
I mean, it was to the point where I knew if I had to do an interview like this or like an in-person thing, like or work, like I could restrain myself for the most part, because I know it would, yeah, that would have turned out real bad. But
Mhm.
but just having only like that minimal amount of self-control wasn't enough, to keep, like I just had to get rid of it all.
Yeah. It's got to be done, man. Like I started having panic attacks. I was dealing acid at one point, and I just had it on me all the time. And I remember I went to like a little holiday with some friends when I was younger, and I had a bad trip. And since that point, I wasn't able to smoke pot again because I just had anxiety like breakdowns. So I stopped smoking pot regularly at the age of like 19.
Hmm.
Great. But then I just turned to booze. Booze was the only thing I wanted to do. And then I started doing coke. Like I'm in my final year of uni, and I started doing a
Hmm.
lot more. Um, and yeah, it was just those moments where like everyone had left the party, because I used to have people around my studio all the time,
Hmm.
and I would bring like random people back. Like at one point, I had like 20 people back at my studio that I didn't even know, just
Yeah.
so I could keep the party going. And it's like, is that kind of thing. Luckily, nothing was broken or stolen, but
I was
Jesus,
gonna say, yeah, you can
that's
run
how
yourself into a dangerous situation that way.
exactly that's how you get yourself into like a really bad place. And I just remember being, 6, 7 a.m. in the morning, everyone's left, and you're by yourself, freaking doing the dishes and like cleaning everything up, and just wanting to like cry. I just wanting to like completely just feeling like that hole in your chest and being like, wow, this is low.
Hmm.
And I know I'm not going to be able to like cope with the week. So I'm just going to stay in bed for the next 4 days. And I knew that was going to happen. And it's just like, it's all of that. Plus, songwriters are very emotional people, and we have to express our emotions in a very clear way, I think. And I think if we don't acknowledge them properly, and we don't, if you can't confront it sober, you you know you it's not going to be easier to do it on drugs, because all drugs or alcohol does is sort of it numbs it and it suppresses them, but it doesn't make them go away.
Sure.
It's like you can't actually go through pain by not feeling the pain,
Pain, right?
right? You have to like you have to take the actual pure unadulterated version of that trauma or that depression or whatever, and you deal with it and you suck it up, and you're allowed to analyze where it's actually come from and what it stems from. But drugs
Hmm.
and alcohol don't allow you to do that. They just go, oh, it's fine, just leave it till tomorrow.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's
Just
okay.
mask it. Yeah. You
Yeah.
can deal with that later.
Yeah, and it's not good. And a lot of people do that. And I think, yeah, I think we live in a society that's overly medicated. And I think,
Oh, dude. Yeah. That's yeah, understatement. Well, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's wild. But sorry, I cut off your advice just because I thought that was cool that you
oh, that,
brought that up.
but that's the biggest piece of advice I can give. I'd say enjoy yourself, but watch yourself, because there's a lot of people out there who normalize drug abuse, and they think it's okay, and it is just going to kill you at the end of the day, and it's going to make your entire life worse. Like, if you stop doing drugs and you stop drinking, your life's going to get better. Second piece of advice, um, find time to work out and look after your body. Find time to work out, look after your body, and eat well, because that doesn't necessarily cost much either. Not doing drugs and going for runs and doing body exercises is free. Doesn't cost any money. Um, I would also say in the industry, don't feel like you have to force things, because nobody's going to force your that it, things come naturally. Like, I'm not saying don't work hard, like work really hard and don't stop working on music, but like also don't be the guy who's or girl who's staying up all night every night trying to finish a song, trying to finish these deadlines for productions. Do things in smaller increments and like don't stress about it. Like, I've been in that situation where I used to pride myself on, oh yeah, I'm the guy who will stay up until 5 a.m. working on a record, and it's like none of those songs came out. It's like the industry is full of like yes men and chances, and you could send a song to someone on one day and they'll take it, and on another day they won't. And you need to just be kind of like, you need to roll with the punches and take the pressure off yourself, and stop like, yeah, basically don't force it. Finish the song, get it done, but mainly just focus on like don't focus on like the perfections of it. Yeah, like if you're pitching a song to someone, it's all about the vocal, and it's all about like the chords and the feel of it and the concept and the lyrics. Like, don't lose sleep over like just over analyzing stuff. If it's like getting late and you're tired, get some sleep. It's the best thing you can do, honestly. And then wake up the next day feeling fresh. Like, having that routine is so good, even though it's hard to do in this industry as a producer like myself or like a writer. You've got to give yourself time to breathe, and you've got to give yourself like leeway, um, and stop like be okay with saying no. Be okay with like just getting away from the computer for a bit, going for a walk, and just taking your time off, because it's so easy to get like emotionally overridden, and like your brain gets full of so much stuff. There's, yeah, it's just keeping calm and like not stressing too much about what if. Just get the music done, enjoy it, and let it ride. Bringing it backward.